Welcome everyone to the Moisky News for April 20th, 2020. To continue on from what we discussed on Friday, there have been further announcements about the UK refusing any extension transition request. Along with that UK firms could possibly not be ready for an EU customs exit, which is a bit of a damning statement since you've got all the time in the world. If by all the time in the world you mean a few months. A spokesman has said that the extension will keep the UK bound by EU rules when it's needed to be flexible to deal with coronavirus. Between now and the end of June, there are scheduled 3 more rounds of trade talks. They are on the 20th of April, 11th of May and the 1st of June. In a joint statement, a new timetable has been confirmed which has those dates for negotiations. Since last week we'd learnt that the trade talks were in their final stages. This is a good sign, right? The statement did dub the current talks to be constructive, and for the most part, talks have been slowed, but only because of coronavirus, but that didn't stop them happening. A statement was put up by David Frost, who is the chief negotiator for the United Kingdom, who on Twitter said, "Extending would simply prolong negotiations, create even more uncertainty, leave us liable to pay more to the EU in future, and keep us bound by evolving EU laws at a time when we need to control our own affairs. In short, it is not in the UK's interest to extend." The current agreement includes specialised committees on Northern Ireland and on citizens' rights. They too will be meeting to discuss arrangements for the future relationship with that of Northern Ireland and Ireland. That is also listed in the whole list of things that are going on right now. The acting leader of the Liberal Democrats, Ed Davey, said that the government's refusal to extend the transition period was irresponsible, and that the government failed to recognise the severity of COVID-19 that is faced by the UK and EU. To add to that, I just thought I'd add, you implied that governments can't multitask, like they don't have several departments that can do their jobs, whilst also tackling something like coronavirus. I'm not sure if that makes you stupid or not, but it sure does explain why you are just an acting leader of an insignificant party that only exists because there are still some idealists left that think the Liberal Democrats won't stab them at the back at the first sign of power. And to be honest, this mentality also shows that he is still desperately trying to, like a number of people, to validate and legitimise staying a part of the EU, cause crisis, and only the EU and together can we solve it. I agree, as a world we can solve it together. Blaming does no one any favours, and there's been plenty of that going on still. But we don't have to be a part of a crumbling body to do it. Now, to continue on from this, the British Chamber of Commerce believe the UK government has not invested enough in training for companies faced with the new customs paperwork. Lol. Currently, ministers had set aside £34 million to help 250,000 companies that trade with the EU. But courtesy of the Freedom of Information Act, and obtained by the BBC, 878 firms have received 17.5 million of that, which might imply ever so slightly that there is not enough money to aid all the companies. But HMRC claim that the funding will and has already helped thousands of companies to improve IT hardware. So, printers? And ink? Oh, and staff. If this were true, though, the Freedom of Information Act would have proved otherwise. It, however, does not. Alex Veitch of the Freight Trade Association says that the planning for an exit from EU rules whilst also navigating COVID-19 was not possible. Well, only a Sith deals in absolutes. He would also like for the UK government to apply for an extension, which is not going to happen. Under the current government's proposals, companies have to complete customs declarations when exporting to or importing from the EU. HMRC estimate that 150,000 to 250,000 will be filling in customs forms for the first time. HMRC also claims that so far the 34 million has supported 4,000 training courses for customs staff, with the Director of International Trade at the British Chamber of Commerce saying, Whilst traders are focused on survival and working out how to deal with the impact of coronavirus, the problem of making 250 million more customs declarations at the end of the transition period has not gone away. Big challenges need big solutions. Cargo will grind to a halt if goods can't be cleared by our customs systems. The funding the government has announced so far is not enough. If the government is serious, they should invest more to employ and train the huge number of people needed to keep the UK trading beyond transition. Of 878 companies, 403 have received funding that are customs intermediaries, who offer to complete customs formalities on behalf of other businesses. There are a number of claims that the current estimates that are endorsed by the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, the SNEC, Michael Gove, that suggest the UK would need 50,000 customs agents. HMRC have said that the UK is already a well-established industry of customs intermediaries who serve British businesses trading outside the EU, and that the government's grant scheme will support the growth of this sector to encompass EU trade after 2020. All in all, this sounds like a bit of a mess. I'm glad that the extension is not being considered and that trade is close to being finalised. Hopefully, then, you can focus on other more pressing concerns within the withdrawal agreement. With this, I'm very much interested to know what you think, so please do let me know in the comments down below.